Right.
So I just said, here's the, so there were a lot of things for her. It's like to see my dad all over again. So, the one thing that was interesting is I found out that my grandfather was township supervisor in Michigan.
Oh, that's so
In the
funny.
UP. It's like, no, there's a connection. Well, because Grandma asked me, she said, what do you do? And I said, well, I said I was retired, and then I got involved in local politics and things, and I said, I'm a township supervisor. She said, well, it runs in your blood. I said, it does, and she said, your grandfather. And then I Googled it, because I'm one of those people that has to check it out, and he was. So that was kind of interesting.
So,
Well, the funny thing is, in my adopted family, my uncle was White Lake Township treasurer, and my other uncle was White Lake assessor. So there's been local government on both sides, really. What'd you start at?
everybody was
The first 6 were taken away. She's got a little gypsy. She's a biker, she's a partier, she goes to the track, she runs the circuit, there's no moss growing on that gal. So we were all taken away, and I've actually read those court papers years ago. My mother had the paper coming from Catholic Social Services that had my original name, so I was actually able to research it because I had this connection. So I knew the story about her, that she had 2 more children with a different husband after. Those got taken away down in Florida and put in foster homes and then later adopted. But those kids were 6 and 8. No, they're younger than that because of the she said she had left and
No, you're not.
She abandoned them. Because he's old enough to remember that thing, and when the police took him, I mean, that would be a thing that we could stick in. So, I mean, she's just kind of been. And when you hear her tell her story, she's been everywhere, done everything, and she's always just been. She's very familiar with that term came out of her mouth. Probably 20 dollars, which there's an iron there. Because if we go to dinner and I won't finish the second. Right, because I'm about a 1.5 beer guy.
right. I'm not a drinker.
And that's about all I can do. So it's, first of all, it's a dramatic thing, but it's just never been.
No, we had quite a few alcoholics in our family.
Of course, then I get Jeff set over there too, so we all may be safe.
But if I am 100%, you guys know, who's the old guy downtown by St. James with the little black dog? Bill Rasmussen.
Yeah.
He worked with my father. Bill and my dad were police officers. My dad was a police officer and I worked. And when I told Bill, I said, you were my dad. When I found out he was an officer. Everybody in the bar. Yeah, that was him. Yeah. And he looked at me for a minute and he said, you look like him. And I do. The hairline is what kind of gives it away.
Are they both gone?
He died. The men in this family. So grandfather at 49, Dick died at 52, Mark died at 54. They all died from heart failure suddenly. But they were smokers and drinkers, which I'm not.
Right.
That, you know, they say only the good die young.
Yeah.
They're on for a while.
Yeah.
I'll be around for a while.
Yeah. They are.
Me too, I'm loved. Zero energy.
Oh, I thought every. Oh, is that what it is? I haven't seen it. I couldn't see it. Yeah, that's like you.
So, I mean, so there was one guy.
Take care of the line.
I don't know, because last time, other days, oh no, I'm trying to think of the trustees that were
So you don't want the guys to bring you responsibility.
and then they moved this out.
Okay, well, I guess if you look like that, you figure, well, we got four guys that just have this school. You just
Reset in a couple months.
Well, Mr. Cat, sit down and something going. Rise for pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call?
Alsop.
Yes.
Kirkchang.
Yes.
Heifel. Yes. Shield.
Yes. Here.
Musgrave. Here. Rankin.
Here.
Perkins.
I'm here. We'll move on to consent agenda. All items listed under consent agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the village council and be approved by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately immediately after the consent agenda approval in its normal sequence on the regular agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed.
Support.
No, I want to move some numbers down.
What do you need?
I want to put 4 to 7, and 6 to 8.
Say that again?
The new business, I want to put number 4,
No,
New business.
we're not,
and I want to put number 6. 7 and 8.
4, 6, what? 4 and 6 on
Number
consent becomes 7 and 8 under business.
Okay, I'll still make the motion to approve the agenda with the additions and corrections.
There is one, I'm sorry, one amendment to the minutes. One of the groups that spoke was listed as Evergreen Council, and it should be Evergreen Management. That was the only suggestion. My apologies.
Okay, going for a third time. We'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda with the corrections.
I'll still support it.
roll call.
Heifel. Yes. Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Alsop.
Yes.
Kirkchang.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes. We have a, Mr. Tim McClory here with us from the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. I won't take too much of your time. Today I'm here with some good news. We've got a couple of envelopes, and in these envelopes are a couple of checks. When you joined the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority a couple of years ago, I promised you 2 things. One, that you'd have access to grant monies that we give to our members to help you not have losses. And I believe it was the chief that got some money from us not that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that I was here with a check for $11,000 for your in-car cams. That's one of the opportunities. There's many opportunities. I encourage all your department heads to go to www.mmrma.org. If you don't have a login, request one. And on there is resources that outline the standard RAP guidelines. There's a lot of money out there. We give back $1.25 million a year to our membership, where we partner with you on risk management projects. And I think there's 41 standard RAP grants. Another thing to take into consideration is we have a CAP grant program, which is part of the RAP grant program. They're big on acronyms. But the CAP grant is certification and accreditation, so if you have people that need to be certified or accredited, go take a look at the list of the things that we help you pay for. On the RAP side, it's usually our 50 cents to your 50 cents, but on the CAP side, it's our 75 cents to your 25 cents. So So please, department heads and anybody else that wishes to go on there, request a login and check out the monies that are available to you. It's free money, so go get it. The other thing, the other part of our program is, as a member, you guys are basically owner of the program. We don't have stockholders, we don't have investors, so the money's not going out in a dividend check to somebody else. What I have today is your portion. This is your first of hopefully many to come, net asset distributions. I have a check here for $6,109 and another check here for $1,648, totaling $7,757. And that is your share of this year's net asset distribution that MMRMA gives back to its members. And again, I expect next year's renewal, I expect that number to grow a little bit. So, and each year you renew. One of the biggest factors of the amount of money that you get back from the MMRMA is how long you've been a member, how much you put into the pot, and how much you've taken out of the pot. So as of right now, this is your prorated share of the $23 million we get back to our membership. So I congratulate you, and again, thank you again. This is your second renewal, but I have some money here, and I'm not sure who I should give it to, Jerry or to Debbie. Okay, perfect. Right to Debbie. All right. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You are. Don't spend it all on place.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We've got another Debbie over here. We'd be more than happy to take her.
You get one.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
If there's nothing else, I'll depart, so.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that was very nice. Let's move on to public comment. Members of the public can address the council once recognized by the chair. Comments are limited to a maximum of 4 minutes. Council may extend this time by an additional 4 minutes by majority vote. Prior to addressing council, members of the public shall state their name and address for the record. Do we have any public comment? Take back to the corner there.
Mr. Weinberg, 409 North Street. Here, a couple meetings ago, I was at one of the meetings, and I was having a conversation with one of the councilmen here, by the name of Councilman Alsop, out here with the building. My conversation with him was reference the public safety budget and that there, about not hiring full-time people for the police department, money being cut from the budget and whatnot. I was asking him certain questions about that and about the cost, full cost of the fire department, what they were paying Groveland. I was trying to get some answers from him in reference to it. During our conversation, which I never did get an answer from Mr. Alsop whatsoever, I got that impression he didn't really know. As I was talking on in that there, Mr. Alsop wanted to tell me just how well Jerry Walker was doing. And by the time he got done, I thought, geez, Jerry Walker must walk on water. He must, Jesus Christ, he must really support this man. And I looked at him and I said, boy, you must have gave him a 5 or a 6. And he looked at me and he says, huh? How? And right down there I got thinking, geez, maybe he did, the way he responded to me. What that is that every year, and I've known this for years, being a taxpayer, living in the village, an employee, that they have evaluations every year at the end of the budget when the budget's approved. So I didn't think any more about it than that there. And my wife and I are at Drayton Plains Kmart one day, and my wife receives a phone call from Mike Gillen, the village attorney. My wife turns around and looks at me and says, you know this guy? I said, yeah, it's the village attorney. Well, he wants to talk to you. So I took the phone, whatnot. I asked Mike, what can I do for you? he says, well, he says, I guess you had a conversation with Councilman Alsop here a while back. And I said, yeah. He said, we talked, and I tried him to answer some questions on the budget and whatnot. I said, well, actually, what is this about, Mike? He said, well, he says, I guess there was some numbers you threw out or something to Alsop. I said, oh, okay. And he said, well, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you, set up a date that we can talk. He says the council, it went into session and that there, and the council people voted that Alsop filed a complaint against village president Jim Perkins. And I need to talk to you about this to see actually what happened. And I said, sure, not a problem. So here last Friday, I met Mike up here at the offices up here, and went in the room. So I asked him again, I asked Mike, says, now tell me what this is actually about. He said, well, I want to ask you a couple of questions. He said that the council and then chambers. And then they voted that they wanted a background investigation, and Jerry Walker wanted this investigation also. I said, for what? He said, well, I guess you put some numbers out there or something to Alsop. And Alsop, talking about Jim Perkins. And I thought, man, what is going on here? I said, we had a conversation. Yep, I threw some numbers out there. I told him exactly what I just said to everybody here just a few minutes ago. And I looked at him and I said, you really gotta be kidding me, Mike. They're paying you to come down here, wasting taxpayers' money, and Jerry Walker sits in his office here on a Friday day off, paying him his taxpayer dollars. I said, this is a joke. I says, this is really a witch hunt, what it looks like to me. And I said, you know, you ask me your questions. And let's get this thing over with, basically.
You're at time, Mr. Weinberg.
Okay.
Lester, can I talk to you, sir?
No, you can't, not right now, until I finish.
Well, the 4 minutes is
I'll,
up, so you can't finish either. The 4 minutes is up.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Do we have any other public comment?
Jim, can I
Sir.
All right, Joe Blarchio, 3413 American Drive. And so I'm here tonight to comment on sort of the hot issue in the village. I know there is a special session for August 22nd. Unfortunately, I can't attend that session. So I want to make some comments tonight. And, you know, as I've witnessed these conversations going on around the medical marijuana facility licensing, it seems like we're getting distracted by all these sort of ancillary issues. And, you know, what's in front of council here is not a question about being for or against medical marijuana. It's not a question about marijuana possibly being legal for recreational use in 2018. It's not a question of is marijuana worse or better than alcohol, or are there more dangers in our community, such as heroin and other opiates. The only question in front of council here is, should Holly be on the bleeding edge of this legislation? And Fenton has said no, Linden is leaning towards no, and I would ask that the village council also votes no on this legislation. This legislation, just like the previous legislation, is sure to have issues. Let other communities figure that out. Let them be the ones that pay the legal fees, that deal with whatever loopholes that come through this legislation. I just see this as a high-risk scenario with very little reward. There is money, sure, there's money out there. That money's going to be there later, right? If things go the way that people intend them to go, and this blows up as they expect it to blow up, that money will still be around later. What I don't want to see is council make a decision that is possibly irrevocable and drive us into this early. So I just don't see a need for us to be leaders in this space. It appeals to a very small subset of users. We're looking at possibly 2% of users that still have facilities that they can access elsewhere. I drive a half-hour away to get fresh produce and good meats. we can't have everything in our community. So I would ask that we wait on this and just see what happens in other communities. The money to me shouldn't be part of the discussion. Just like the lotto money didn't fix our schools, you know, the idea that this money might fix our roads, I don't buy it. So I would ask you guys to wait on this and let other people figure it out first, and let them deal with all the issues that potentially could come with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments?
Good evening, Tony Engelberg, 115 Cox Show. I was actually going to speak on the marijuana thing tonight, but in the interest of timeliness, I actually am here tonight to talk about fireworks. The 4th of July fell midweek this year and will again next year. And to some in our community, that apparently meant that they had 8 days of leeway to violate our laws and endanger and disturb the peace of their neighbors and create tension and conflict within our community. Fireworks discussions online and in public led to angry commentary, homophobic slurs, and really brought out some bad characteristics in people who felt that their rights to violate the law were more important than those who wanted the law followed. And it saddened me when a couple of people in the community who I respected chose to condone their behavior. We have very specific laws in this village that state that fireworks can be shot off the day before, the day of, and the day after a holiday, and it's regardless of whether the holiday falls midweek or on a weekend. And that you can't be closer than 100 feet to a structure, which makes a lot of sense considering we live in a village filled with wooden houses, and I'm fortunate enough that I spent a lot of money to put a rubber fire-resistant roof on my house. There aren't a lot of those in the village. You have people in this community who are so brazen when it comes to violating this law that they're willing to post their address and pictures of their firearms online and challenge anyone, including the Holly Police, to stop them from violating the laws that we all are supposed to abide by when we live in the village. So my question for tonight is, at what point do the citizens of this community that follow the laws get the legal protection they should expect from those who do not? And we're not talking about minor annoyances here. We're talking about explosives in the hands of amateurs, some probably intoxicated, being launched into a village of homes that are packed very closely together. So the enforcement issue is what I have a problem with. And let me please preface this by saying that I love and respect our police department. We're fortunate to have them, and I'd be on the front line to defend keeping them local. Our officers are not bullies, they're not overbearing, and they do not go out of their way to look for excuses to write tickets. Otherwise, people who might have purchased 2 extra baby chickens before you guys finalized the votes might have been a little bit more concerned. But when people are doing things to endanger the health, welfare, and safety of our residents, I think there needs to be a declaration that the behavior won't be tolerated. I believe a ticket can be up to $500, and that could be a major deterrent. So my question tonight is, were any tickets written this year? When I asked the same question last year, I was told the answer was 0. And if not, why not? Was it the fact that residents who called dispatch to get an officer to the scene were argued with, as has been reported? Was it that our officers issued warnings that were ignored? Is it going to take someone losing their home or their life before we start cracking down? I found fireworks on my roof this year, and that's pretty disturbing to me because nobody in either house next to me was shooting them off. And nobody behind me, it's a house owned by John Love, and it's 300 feet away, there was nobody there to shoot them off. So that tells you that they traveled a pretty decent distance. Long, thin stick with a thing on top. I'll wrap this up real quick.
Good, you're almost there, Tom.
May I have an extra 1 minute, please?
40 seconds.
We live in a community that's supposed to be friendly and welcoming to veterans. Many veterans, and some not in our community, suffer from PTSD and other disorders that make explosives very traumatic. If we had an actual community center in Holly, it could be opened up as a shelter on nights fireworks were launched, but we do not. So folks are either forced to leave their homes or sit there and suffer. And people with pets, me and my 6 cats, are forced to tranquilize their animals or just subject them to the noise. So I'm not saying that fireworks should be illegal, and I'm not saying people shouldn't celebrate. I'm just simply asking that our police step up some enforcement and warn people before the holiday and then start writing a few tickets. At $500, people will think twice before they shoot something up in the air they're not supposed to and when they're not supposed to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any further public comment? No?
Cullis.
Yes, George Cullis, 601 East Maple Street. Just to add to what Mr. Engelberg said, I was on the council when we passed the ordinance, giving them a day before and a day after, and we discussed some of that issues. It has become a real issue with this last 4th of July. Living in one of those old wood houses that he talked about, I picked up the same thing he did out of our yard, the long sticks with the rockets on the end of them. And the concern is, I was downtown one day and there were some people, they were residents of the apartment over, and they were right next to the Davisburg bread. They were shooting off these large, they look like a case box. And this thing shot off, I actually talked to them, it was like $50 a box. And it shot off 12 tubes. And it was shooting it all over. And we may need to revisit that because it is a concern, and I'd hate to see us be another one of those towns that loses their downtown because those buildings are old and fragile. And we may need to limit some of the areas, not just the 100 feet, because this thing was a box of explosions, and it was going off. And the rockets showing up in the yard, they are a concern. And we've seen the stories in the news where I think last year somebody's gazebo got burned down, not here in Holly, but it was on the news. So I just think it's a thing that we may not want to take lightly, because we've got some issues out there that are problems, and Lord knows the police department can't be everywhere at one time. And interestingly enough, we spend over 10 grand a year to put on a whole fireworks celebration. So it's not like we're without.
Right.
Just some thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Cullis. Any further public comment? No? We'll close public comment. Move on to old business, of which we have none. And move on to new business. Item number 1, consideration of approval of ordinance 448, amendment to section 54.03B concerning placement of storage and refuse containers.
So perhaps, I'm not sure, Mr. Cruikshank, do you want to carry this since it was charter and ordinance?
Yeah, I'm getting to the location right now. So this one is about the storage of garbage cans. This is one of the suggestions that originally came from the Blight Task Force Committee that was going on last summer into the fall, into the winter. So this is one of the instances there, and that the storage of containers is, people leave them all over the place. And being that they're the size they are in the village, and I'm not even sure what the gallon size is, but they're massive. When they're out in the front of the houses or in the yards and that kind of thing, that they, it's an eyesore, essentially. So we wanted to, suggest an ordinance change to the Charter and Ordinance Committee, to which this one is. And this one requires it to be behind the front plane of the house. So the, front porch is back, or garage is back, the front plane there. One suggestion, though, that I wanted to kind of discuss with council, though, is after going through this ordinance, is a couple of residents had approached me and asked if we could amend even this portion right here to make sure that they're against the house. Because they said that there are situations where they have, cans that are behind the front plane, but they're, next to the neighbor's house, or they're splitting in between, that they're not, they're still out in the open, even though they're behind the front plane of the house.
So you just want to make it more specific?
Yeah, so this one, well, at least a suggestion. So we can do it as the way it is here, or we can add the amendment that we would, that the cans need to be stored up against the house. Would just be the additional wording in there. So to read exactly would just be, except as specified above, refuse containers must be stored behind the front plane of the residential. Which is pretty simple. If we wanted to add the, being stored up against the house or garage as an option, we can discuss.
Now, what's the time frame on the removal?
I believe now it's, 12 hours after trash removal? It's in the ordinances now.
Right, that's fine.
Before you can put out and when you have to pull, off of the curb.
Okay.
So that's already taken care of. This is just the location of storage.
So it's like 12 hours before?
I think it's I think it says like the evening to the night before trash
Right,
pickup.
yeah, and then like 12 hours
yeah.
after trash has been picked up?
Yeah.
I think it's 24 hours before and 12 after.
Okay.
So basically you can put them out the night before and they want you to pull them in the night after.
Yeah, the night
The
of
evening
trash,
after the that, on that day that it's picked up.
And this request isn't necessarily about that pulling out cans and bringing it back in, this is the storage of the other
Yeah.
6 days a week that they're, you know, while they're at the house and being filled up. So that's what this one is to curb.
I have a question. When you say behind the front plane, what if people have them on the side?
Well, that's, yeah, so as long as it's
Still
not in the front,
behind the front, but it's still
Yes.
visible.
if it's still on the side, yeah, this kind of just gets it out of the right of way, so to speak, yeah.
No, like, what, I guess my question is to kind of piggytail on Ms. Musgrave's question. On corner lots, where would the back plane, the front plane of the house be there?
Well, it's still wherever the house is facing the front of the street, so whatever their address, you know, dictates, that's the front of the plane. So on those corner lots, you may still see it on the side of the garage, which would be, you know, the view of a side street, but, you know, there's nothing now. So this is to give some more clarity on that. So those individuals, I mean, we could of course amend it and add if you're on a corner lot, then it has to be behind, you know, that's council's pleasure too.
I don't know, I think as long as it's up, not up in front of you, you know, you drive up down Saginaw 2 days later and there's 5 cans still sitting out.
Correct, yeah, they're scattered out there.
Try 5.
I said 5.
So, yeah, there's, you know, this will, you know, well, that's a separate ordinance issue about the timing, but this actual storage, you know, the other 6 days a week, that's what this is, you know, supposed to take care of. So I guess, you know, if, I would make the motion that we accept this, and add the sentence where it says it must be, you know, up against the house.
Support.
Well, after we get the motion, then we need a vote on that. Oh, Debbie supported it. I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Wait.
I will do it?
Yeah, no.
Go ahead, Tony. Sorry.
No, you're okay. Before you vote on it, and I understand what you're saying about trash cans being out and being out in public, or out in the view, but there are houses, and mine is one of them. My entire house is surrounded by flower beds. So if you require me to put my trash cans up against my house, I'm having to, and my flower beds are kind of raised up with border around them. You're telling me I then have to
Put it behind the house.
I have a deck back there. Is there a way you can accomplish, right now I have them on the opposite side of my driveways. They've always been behind the plane of the house, but they're up against the fence where I don't have a flower bed on the dividing line of my property and the next property, where I don't have flowers. But
Well, in a house like yours where the driveway is up against the house and it's not,
and
it's not really much more than a vehicle width.
It isn't, right.
I don't know that you would even have room to put a
Next to your
can.
home.
against my home there, no. And in the back of my house, I have a deck spanning the entire,
Yeah,
so just, you guys do what you gotta do, but just please consider.
I don't know how deeply we want to delve into this, or if we just want to accept it how it is and possibly amend it at a later date. But if we're going to do, either it has to say that it either has to be up against the side of the house or within the, I don't know, I know that you know what I'm talking about, what the association has, like where you can place a shed in the association, it has to be within the sidewalls.
It has to be behind the rear, yeah, the footprint of the house, behind the rear footprint.
Right.
That's part of it, that's what that, you know, requirement is for sheds in there.
I think the whole thing that this was proposed for is so that people aren't leaving their garbage cans out all week long.
Right.
And people have to see it when they come into
Right.
town.
I think we're.
I mean, that's the big.
I mean, we can certainly leave it as is now and discuss later. I'm just, a resident come up with the same exact opposite that Tony is, so now we have, you know, both residents,
Well,
you know,
and
same
thinking
suggestion,
of
so.
actually where I live, it's difficult for me to have, because I'm on a corner, and it's difficult for me to have the cans up against the house because we also have a deck. So, I mean, we could put it, obviously we could put it next to the deck, but then that's.
Smell like can next to a deck.
Yeah, I don't want the deck, I don't want the garbage can right next to my back door.
Garbage when you're eating?
Right, I don't want it right next to the door.
Well,
If
so
council wants to amend it, yeah, I mean, we can
amend it and
it.
remove the against the house?
Sure. So it'd be as printed,
Just,
except as specified above, refuse containers will be stored behind the front plane of the residential unit.
Support.
All in favor?
Does this require a roll
More
call?
discussion?
no more discussion, I just thought we needed a roll call.
Well,
Terry, do we need a roll call on this one since it's an ordinance?
Yes.
okay, let's do a roll call.
Alsop.
Yes.
Cruikshank.
Yes.
Pikel.
Yes.
Keel.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes. Item number 2, consideration of council action, request approving the amendment of the village manager's contract.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Perkins. Pursuant to my professional services agreement with the village council is required to conduct an employee performance evaluation every year by June 30th of every year. On June 26th, the council, you did perform that evaluation of me. It was done in closed session, but the results, I mean, were outstanding, and I appreciate that. My contract also calls for, that's the opportunity that council can provide additional compensation if they choose after that evaluation. What I have before you tonight is an amendment to my current professional services contract. And what I'm asking, I'm not asking for additional pay raise, but what I am asking for are 3 amendments to my contract. The first amendment, as listed in the memo, is more or less just updating the contract. So previously, I was receiving health insurance through a prior employer where I retired from. Once that health insurance was no longer available, council had authorized me to go on the village's plan, which really is permissible under the personnel manual for all full-time employees of the village. But, so that's more a matter of housekeeping. Number 2, paragraph 12 of my contract calls for the village to assign a vehicle to the village manager. During the last budget, and really 2 budgets before that, the village council, in absence of providing a vehicle, had provided a vehicle allowance of sorts, but it was never updated in my contract in that manner. The amount that was approved in that vehicle allowance was $350 per month. The situation with that is, of course, by the time you have a car payment and insurance, the $350 a month does not cover that amount. And so what I'm requesting in item number 2 is that if a vehicle is not assigned to the village manager, that car allowance be adjusted to $500 per month to cover the cost of the automobile and applicable automobile insurance. And then the remaining situation would remain the same with the vehicle. The third item that I'm requesting, or amendment to my contract, is I'm asking that council consider extending my contract so that it would then expire 5 years from the date of execution of the amended contract, if you choose to do so. So just a little history. So as you know, I hired into the village on September of 2010. So I've been here nearly 7 years. During that time, we've seen lots of change in the village, and lots of change for the good. We've seen development happen. We've seen team building occur within the employees of the village, and things have changed some within the departments. There have been attrition in departments. There have been changing in staffing levels. There have been additions and deletions of equipment, but all of a concerted effort from your management team. So I think you have a very good management team in place now. I'm proud to be your village manager. Sorry, George. Let that city slip out. But what I'm asking for is that you approve that contract extension for myself. I think it does 2 things. I think not only does it provide stability for myself and my family, I think it provides stability for the village. Prior to my hiring in 2010, I mean, the reason I came here was because I was called up for an emergency type situation on a 90-day contract. And so I've been here ever since, working in partnership with the council and the residents and business owners of the village. And I think that stability has been a big part of why we're where we're at today. And so I would like to continue that, obviously, for myself and for the village. And so really those three items that encapsulates my request for contract extension.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Do we have any public comment on this? Do we have a motion?
I make the motion, we approve the amendment of the village village manager's contract to include health insurance, automobile allowance, and extension to 5 years.
Support.
Roll call?
Cruikshank.
Absolutely, yes.
Piper.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Twice yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Move on to item number 3, consideration of council action requesting approving the installment of a flagpole at Cyclone Park. Mr. Rankin.
So Rick Powers and I are part of a committee for the Cyclone Beautification Committee. It's really, he just picked the one park to put in the name, but it's really for all Holly parks. So anyways, he would like to put, his idea was that all parks should have flagpoles, and I don't disagree with him in the least. So he has some funds that are raised already. This won't cost the village anything. Rick plans on doing all the fundraising for this project, but we want to have a flagpole array similar to what he and, I always forget his name.
I'm not sure, you're talking about parking.
Terry Baker, yes, thank you. They're similar to the 3 flagpoles that they put up at the end of Park Street. So we haven't quite determined the exact location yet, but it will be somewhere between the parking lot and the ball field is kind of where we're looking at, and somewhere in that area we'll work with the DPW and find out what would be the ideal location for them as far as mowing and drainage and that sort of thing.
So if I can just add just a little bit, sure, if you don't mind. So I met additionally with Mr. Powers and Mrs. Kreider, who is, I think, really part of his fundraising arm for that project. And they are going to put together a site plan. Yes. We're going to provide them with a copy of the Parks Master Plan. They're going to provide a site plan. And then I think their intent was to submit it back to the Parks Commission for approval. But just so the council knows, that's a process. It's not just, as Chris said, where they're just going to stick a flagpole anywhere. It'll be something that's approved by the parks, since that is one of the parks under the commission's jurisdiction.
So we just wanted to make sure that we had council's blessing to before we went any further with trying to gather funds, because if nobody wants a flagpole, well, then we'll look up others in other locations.
I like the idea.
Make the motion that we approve the installment of a flagpole at Cyclone Park.
Second.
All in favor?
Happy birthday.
All in favor?
I have to abstain on this, even though I'm 110% in support of it.
Understood.
I've provided the bid.
You work at the company we're going to buy the flagpoles from?
It's a little conflict of interest, in my opinion.
Were you going to start singing it?
No.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to check and make sure.
I'm just prepping my.
They went interrupt you.
He was just warming up.
Yeah.
Item number 4, consideration of the fiscal year 2018 municipal specialized services contract with Smart Transportation.
Actually, this is our contract with Smart for our buses. We actually have a 3-year contract with them that was approved in 2016, but they require us to sign a yearly contract that just submits our budget and what the municipal credits will be and what the specialized services.
Well, we need the SMART program.
Definitely.
I guess I would make the motion to, would it be you executing the contract, Debbie?
Yes,
Okay.
President Perkins has to sign it.
Okay. Make the motion that we allow Debbie and President Perkins to sign the contract for the upcoming year for the special contract with Smart.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item number
I
5.
think that needs to be a roll call, since it's money.
This morning, well,
So this
let's
is
do a roll call.
budget. Shield,
Yes.
Musgrave,
Yes.
Rankin,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Kirkshank,
Yes.
Heickel,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes. Item number 5, consideration of ordinance 449, amendment to chapter 150 of the Code of Ordinances by adding a new section labeled section 150.030, parentheses, item A, concerning the replacement of boarded up windows.
Say that 10 times real fast.
No.
Couldn't get there once barely.
Thank you.
This is another one that came out of the Blight Task Force. We currently don't have any ordinances on the books for replacing windows that have been boarded up. So I think that this one was a little bit of importance to me personally, just as you drive around town in some of the even dilapidated buildings that are boarded up windows, and it's kind of a sad thing to see. So what this one does is it gives a time frame for replacement. So if it's a broken window, we allow you to board it, but it must go back to a window within 90 days. So the specific ordinance states, broken windows must be repaired or replaced with light glazing materials within 14 days. The boarding up of open or broken windows in an occupied structure is prohibited, except as a temporary measure and not to exceed 14 days. Boarding up of the windows in any vacant or unoccupied structure is prohibited except as temporary measure not to exceed 90 days. So the part of this is, in an occupied structure, 14 days to go back to a window, and then in an unoccupied structure, you have 90 days to do so. So it seems like it will have a minimal effect, but I think it's still effective nonetheless.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What about people who have to take their windows out when they put an air conditioner in? How's this gonna impact them?
I guess that would be a broken
A
window.
lot of people do. If you have a certain type of air conditioner and you put it in your window and you put a board in there
Oh, to take up the remaining, because if you've got
to
a
take up
slider,
the
side
remaining
sliders.
space, or the top, how is that gonna impact them?
I guess this ordinance would be, because it specifically says broken windows.
Yeah, it's
So maybe
specific to
that's the
broken.
coverage on there, it's like if it's an
Okay.
air conditioner, the logical individual would say, hey, because I did that to my mom's place just a few weeks ago, so I certainly understand that, yeah, that's a good point to bring out.
A lot of people
Does
have
that cover, would this, do we think that, having saying broken windows, would that cover that portion of it?
I think so.
If we're in agreement, okay. Perfect. I guess I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 449, which would be section 150.30, parens A, for the replacement of windows, saying broken windows must be repaired or replaced with light glazing materials within 14 days. The boarding up of an open broken windows in an occupied structure is prohibited except as temporary measure not to exceed 14 days. And the boarding up of windows in any vacant or unoccupied structure is prohibited except as temporary measure not to exceed 90 days.
Can I ask a question first? I know there's a motion on the floor.
Sure.
Is anything being grandfathered into this? Such as the wheelhouse,
The waterworks building?
waterworks, yeah?
Oh, that's,
It's
well, we're
not an
gonna,
occupied building.
well, it'll be unoccupied, so we have 90 days, and we're gonna take some action within 90 days on that one. But I would approve
Okay.
that this would, no grandfathering in, so we should be subject to our own rules, I agree.
Support.
Roll call?
Musgrave,
Yes.
Rankin,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Kirkshank,
Yes.
Heickel,
Yes.
Shield,
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes. And item number 6,
I'll add it to the Parks agenda.
consideration of approval of ordinance 450, amendment to section 90.03, parentheses B, concerning the keeping of chickens.
Forgive me.
All right, so I'll take this one again. Basically, the only thing we are doing with this is our previous ordinance, or the ordinance that exists right now, only allows for 3 chickens in the village, and we are requesting to up it to 6 chickens. So we'll just go from 3 to 6, nothing else changing but the number. Still no roosters?
Still no roosters.
Still no roosters.
I'll make the motion that we approve this.
Support.
Roll call?
Olson.
Yes.
Cruikshank.
Yes.
Heickel.
Yes.
Shield.
Yes.
Musgrave.
Yes.
Rankin.
Yes.
Perkins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Alsop has pulled down item number 4, which becomes new business number 7, business registration of earth-friendly products.
Why I did this, and I talked to Chris Rankin the last council meeting, I went by this used to be an old laundromat,
That's the old farm,
right? And next door is a home, and they're talking about spray paint. If they're spraying it outside, if I was their neighbors, I wouldn't want to breathe that, would you, Debbie? I mean, I know how it smells. They mentioned, I know I read it in here, that's what pulled down.
I think it was under the chemicals.
Yes.
that
Yeah,
come
it's
in
just,
the
they
small
they have
cans.
a couple
For
of
the
cans of small paint.
Fire department to be
Because
aware
it's-
of.
But they say that now, but how do you know they're gonna not spray 10 cans or 20 cans a day, and inside or outside? Because spray paint, the neighbors are right next door.
Says retail and small.
Well, we know Tony's not gonna get 12 chickens, because there's a rule. And there's,
Well, you know what I'm
if
talking about.
there's a complaint, then we can, I think we can do
Yeah,
it. At that time.
addressed.
I think what we need to do is take the business owner at their word.
Is there somebody here that is under this, what we're talking about, earth friendly?
No, I don't believe he's here. I did meet with him though, and certainly, I mean, that is not his intent to conduct that type of activity where there's heavy repair and painting and use of chemicals on site. The property is zoned commercial. He's gonna do small engine, according to him, he's gonna do small engine repair and small repair of just different light fixtures or more of a handyman on site type of situation. The property is zoned commercial.
I got the impression that the things he would be painting would be like if he repaired a lawnmower, he would repaint the chassis on it.
I
Yeah,
think
he
he's
says in
probably
the
So it would
application.
not be a giant, it wouldn't be a large job.
Well, I've seen that too, and we talked about it, me and Mr. Rankin a couple weeks ago, but I just want to make that on the record that if somebody complains that he's out there painting complete tractors and everything, I wouldn't want to breathe it either. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. Everything else is good.
I don't know that there's a specific ordinance that addresses it, but I'm pretty sure that if you were out doing any sort of, if he was out spray painting a
Large
tractor
scale
in the
spray
yard,
painting.
that there would be a violation of an ordinance.
There's a lot of people that ask when they can't breathe with that paint here. Anything?
No, I mean, I agree with that, but I also said, I think Chris has the right approach that if there's any complaints, then we'll hack on it.
But I just want to make a note that that's
Yeah.
what call it down.
Make the motion that we approve the business registration for earth-friendly products.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 6 has been dropped down from the consent agenda, which is now new business, item number 8. Special event, Holly Farm and Flea Market.
Okay, I brought this up. Vince is my personal friend. He also with the car show. And I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but when I started the car show, I went to restaurant, and I shook their hands when they sponsored the car show. I never go back on my word. And I told Vince last week, I walked out there and here's a tent out in front. Nachos, tacos, and all that. I told the guy, I said, what are you doing here? He said, I'm with the, I think the VFW in Flint. I said, that have nothing to do with Holly, you gotta get my permission. He said, I'm with Vince. I told him, I said, will you please move your whole setup out of here? So Vince come out there and he moved it to the back. And I had one of the store owners ask me, the restaurant that helps us with the car show, he said, what's going on over there? I said, I got it handled. So I walked over and told Vince, I said, if you want to have food inside of your building, like the Red Devil or whatever, that would be all right with me, but I shook everybody's hands and give them my word that there would be no circus kind of people out there selling food. Because that's how, when I brought them into town, I mean, when we did the car show, that's how town lives. The Red Devil, the bread shop, Jamie's coffee place. I do not want to do that to the people. And I think and Vince is another thing. I'm for him 100%. He can have 10,000 dealers out back. I don't care. And flowers.
So that's what you're asking for, is that everything remains behind the building.
Yeah.
And he, another thing I asked him, and I don't want him to get mad because we're partners, like, as he comes down Civic Drive, I told him, please don't have that big red trailer there. That takes up 10 parking places. I said, please put it out back, or use it inside and go along your alley, and you can put all you want there. And I don't know if that's his property or not, but I'm running with me, but I don't want those vehicles out on the street, because if we get 300 cars, I don't know who of them, you've been downtown. And they got from his door all the way back with those motorhomes and all that sitting there with tents out there, and I can't get cars in and out if we get busy. And if Vince would work with me and we could clean him out in the back, I mean, I like him, he's my friend, but I don't want to come down on it, but I don't have no other option here. And I asked him Wednesday not to have food there, and I seen on here that Vince has food here. And what if he brings 5 hot dog stands for Flint? What's the people in town that think of me? When I shook their hand, give them my word that I wasn't gonna do that.
But this isn't part of you.
Yeah,
This
I
is
gotta go
Vince.
back on my word there.
I guess I'm trying to find what you're getting at here. You don't want Vince to sell food?
He doesn't want it commingling with the car show.
I don't mind the food if he's got a license and he's selling it in his business, like the bread shop or Jamie's Coffee Shop, but not out in the street from Flint, Michigan.
So you don't want it part of the car show at all?
Well, what do you
To have an outside vendor?
Not
Food
not
vendor.
food,
Food
not
vendor.
outside food vendors. If he wants to take it inside of his place and hide them there, but not big food, like what if they start serving pizzas in there and the red devil comes down on me?
Why would they come down here for Vince's setup though? I guess I'm not understanding.
I think what Bob's worried about is that because it's there, and they would associate it with the car show. So I think what we're trying to get here is to keep Vince contained, I guess. Is that am I
I don't know that that's our place.
Am I right, Bob? That we're trying to keep Vince contained?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what.
No,
what it-
because that's the car show's activity with all the townspeople. And I didn't want outsiders coming there and selling food and taking, not having the food, our restaurants in town not getting a benefit from it. If somebody's selling dollar tacos, they're gonna go buy a dollar taco instead of going over to the Moose that sponsors the car show that's selling tacos Wednesday. And that's what they were selling.
I think with you being in charge of the car show,
And I told Vince
that
last week.
falls on you.
Exactly.
That's not a council issue.
Well, I know, but he's got it here, Deb, and I told him last week, please no food, but then here this comes in front of me today.
But I think he's
Yeah, but
asking for the permission to have the farm and flea market.
Right.
That's what his
But
Right,
see,
and
he's
that's-
application is for. And he's
Yeah, no, I see.
included
And
that.
he's got, he's got wastewater here.
Sure. So, council has previously authorized the car show to have a specific footprint downtown, which includes Civic Drive, Battle Alley, and Saginaw. And so it would seem to me that any other event that wanted to come in and operate during that same time within that footprint would be under control or jurisdiction of the car show. Because that area has been closed off and, for lack of a better term, turned over to the car show for those approved hours. And so I think in this particular case, if council wanted to, I mean, you could take the stance that if he's going to operate, he's doing it in conjunction with the car show and under the direction of the car show, leave it just as that. Or you could approve his event as he's stated and just say no outdoor vendor sales on Saginaw Street.
You mean on
That makes more sense.
And Civic, that way it gives him the authority then, even though he would have it under the car show, but it gives him the authority to operate in his back warehouse area, which is now an event center, and his alley, yeah, and his alley and plus the parking lot. So certainly council could take either one of those approaches and be fine. And I'll be happy to meet with Mr. Iafano and explain whichever route council decides to.
Well, I don't want to infringe on Bob, and I surely don't want to infringe on Vince, so if they both have their own space, that would be the best.
Because he helps with the car show. He's
Yeah,
a part of it.
of course he
I
does.
mean, if he wants to have food, he can have it inside. I mean, they have a permit in there for food, don't they?
Well, they are inspected by the health department, yes.
Okay, but, I mean, if they want to sell food in there, they can, but not having it blatantly
On Civic.
on Civic where it does impact the rest of the restaurants.
Well, I think that if Vince himself was having the food, his restaurant, except instead of having outside sources come in and sell hot dogs and pizzas and everything, that's just not fair to the town. That's just my opinion there.
I don't feel that this is a government operation, we should be doing that.
Although we do have to approve this permit. for them to have
No,
this.
yeah, I mean the minutia that's going on.
See, if that was cleaned up in the back there, they could put all kinds of vendors back there.
So the problem that I see with this is that he is specifically requesting that he use part of Civic Drive adjacent to the building, which we have already
Given to the car show.
which is already part of the footprint of the car show and has been for
20 years.
Right.
So I would say one thing you could do is approve his permit and amend it to strike Civic
Yeah.
Drive.
I agree.
And then if
I mean,
he and the car show can work out,
the specifics.
yeah, an amenable agreement, that's fine.
What
But
we want
other way, because the area has already been turned over to the car show
Right.
for this calendar year.
We already have Civic Street reserved for the car show. We can then also reserve it for Vince at the same time,
Right.
for the Holly Farm and Fleet. If he and Bob can come to some agreement on sharing the space with other vendors,
That's up to them.
I'm totally all for letting them work that out. But I think when we approve this, and I'll make the motion that we approve this with the amendment that his handwritten note that says part of Civic Drive adjacent to the building is stricken.
What about food?
In the food.
He can have the food, just not on Civic.
But no outside vendors like from Flint, Michigan.
You just said you didn't care if you had it inside.
But then what if he has 10 or 15 food vendors inside? I don't want to fight with him.
Well, he's not, because the Firm and Fleet takes up most of the space as it is.
Well, so the problem is in regards to food, if he conducts business within his building, the footprint of his building, council has no jurisdiction.
Right, it's not a government.
That's right.
Again, I think we should just approve this with the amendment that he is not given carte blanche on Civic Drive. If he wants to do something on Civic, he will have to go through the car show, which has already been given that space.
I agree.
So that's my
I
motion.
would say strike this entire thing, because it's or adjacent to the building.
No, it says part of Civic Drive adjacent to the
Oh.
building.
Street, blocks everything.
Okay, excuse me, I need glasses.
If we're not busy, we don't mind it, but if you got 300 cars, you been down there, it's terrible.
Yeah, it gets tight in there. So I think we've got the car show grandfathered in, it's already been approved. We can also approve another event to use the same space.
I agree.
It's double dipping.
Because he's definitely friends with us.
Yeah, and he'll work with you.
I
He
know.
will. Vince is a nice guy, we're both nice people.
Mr. Rankin, you've made the
I have
motion.
made a motion.
Support. Oh, you supported?
Yeah, a little bit of that.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move on to reports. Mr. Manager?
Yes, thank you. Just a few things briefly. So we've already talked a little bit about August the 11th. That is the first council meeting next month. And that is the date that is scheduled for discussion regarding Waterworks building. And so we will carry that as the lone agenda item unless something additional comes up. And Mr. Rankin, if he chooses as chairman of the Parks, give the Parks Commission update, that's when it will be discussed. And I think the intent of council, of course, who knows with council, we could change your mind, is to make a decision that night as regarding Waterworks building. But Director Clausen of DPW has a full report ready with different options and cost estimates depending upon what option is selected for that night. On August the 22nd, the next council meeting, that is a date that's scheduled for a town hall style public hearing regarding medical marijuana. And the the new law that is going into effect at the end of this year. We will make notifications to those groups that have previously presented to council, as well as advertise or post the public hearing. We're actually not required to advertise in the newspaper. I don't think it's necessary with as much discussion and social media activity that's been occurring, but certainly we will put it on our website. We'll blast it out with our Gov Delivery and our different social media platforms, and we'll get that out there. On August the 26th, staff is planning, I was kind of hoping Mr. Engelberg would be gone when I talk about fireworks again. But these are organized fireworks, of course, for our annual 4th of July fireworks. We were very fortunate this year, as I reported in a prior meeting, that our fundraising efforts were very successful. The business community and the residents and the patrons at the fireworks on the 4th were very generous. We finished in the black this year, one of the few years where we're still not fundraising in order to pay for the 4th. But we're proud of the fact that we don't use tax dollars for that event. We put on a great community event for everybody to enjoy. And so we have a fundraiser planned for August the 26th. We'll send the details along to the Parks Commission also, since it's going to be in the park, in Lakeside Park. But it's going to be a end of the summer blast type activity with rock climbing walls and bounce houses and other kids games, and a hot dog lunch moderately priced. So if you can keep that on your calendar, your attendance would be appreciated, and to spread the word, we'll get flyers out to you. The next thing on September the 16th, of course, is Holly Day, in conjunction with the Parks Commission and the Community Coalition. The Community Coalition, of course, does their fun run first thing in the morning, followed by a parade organized by our own Miss Katie Hughes, and then Community Play Day from the Parks Commission, and then Holly Day in conjunction with the Moose and other vendors throughout the downtown. I think we're going to have some more participation with sidewalk sales and different activities, so we look for a full day. And then the very last thing is in September, at the September 12th council meeting, unless something else comes up, or if council has another item they want to discuss, I'd like to use that meeting to bring road professional services back in to talk about roads. So we were fortunate enough to be able to tackle some roads and sidewalks this year. We have a few more sidewalks and maybe some road repair on our calendar to get done as weather and funds permit. But we know that we have a long-range problem with roads. So as Roe had reported previously, we have about $15 million in road repairs if we were to do them all at once. We know it's not feasible to do that. But what that means is that council and administration, we need to be very strategic about how we attack this problem. I think the way that we attack it first is to have road professional services come back in, give us a little rehash of the PACER ratings, which is just a rating of which roads are worse and which ones should be replaced or repaired first, and then start to develop a strategy that is going to be encompassing of a lot of different facets of financing and funding. But it's something that we need to do. Otherwise, if we wait till all our roads completely disintegrate, the cost will be out of control.
Do we have any sort of traffic count to correlate with the condition of the roads? Like, yeah, this road's really horrible, but only 6 people use it every day, so we're not going to worry about it so much as this road that's not quite as bad, but 4,000 people use it every day.
So they don't actually do traffic counts in conjunction with their PACER ratings. They do more just the condition of the road. But
right. I didn't know if we had some other study that, like, I know we do counts on Saginaw regularly.
Yeah,
lately anyways.
Yeah, and so that's an interesting question, actually, because as you know, as part of this last little package we did Holly Bush Drive at the end of it, right, which really is not a high-volume road, but it was a short road, and it was in very poor condition. So right, that's the reason that was selected, because that can be added on to our larger sections. Right,
and it was in really bad condition, so it was good that we were able to get it done.
Yeah, so the Director Clausen has a really good handle. I think bringing Doug Scott back in from Roe is the right thing to do and get us on track. And from there, really, I look at us doing a series of public education seminars, meetings, and hopefully we can get more of the public engaged to gain not only input, but also to gain more or less acceptance of this is gonna be large expense for the village, and it's something all of us are gonna have to tackle together in order to have the kind of community that we want. And I guess just one more thing, I'm longer than I thought I was going to be. In relation to the stormwater management involving Dollar Tree, involving the old Joseph Pontiac building, involving Goodwood. So I have a completed meeting with all the proposed affected property owners about the process, so that they all know exactly what's happening. Road Professional Services is going to start a survey on the property. It's one of those things that has to be done before they can come up with an exact price, or as close to exact as they can get, and still estimating that there's going to be any cost overruns. So just so you know, if you see survey equipment or get calls, that's the reason. So we have not commissioned the installation of any stormwater management system that we know large pipe, and we have not secured easements, but I have spoken with the affected property owners regarding easements, and also regarding proposed potential costs that are going to be there. And that's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. Baker?
Nothing really to report. All the budget amendments are done that you approved at the last meeting in June. I am now working on the audit prep reports and doing all the book backs for the fiscal year.
All right, thank you. On to boards and commissioners, Mr. Shand, Kaya, and Historical.
Excuse me. Haya didn't meet since their last meeting, which was the first Thursday of this month. Historic did meet, and I asked earlier today, or this evening, for a little help from Mrs. Hughes in regards to a thing that we discussed about certified local government. She can, I think Ms. Hughes can probably do a little better job than I can at elaborating on this.
Please do.
So if you don't mind, Ms. Hughes.
Oh, no problem. So we did meet on Thursday. There's something called certified local government, and I attended. It was a meeting with Mr. Walker and also Rachel, the assistant, to learn more about what it is to become a certified local government. And it's in partnership with the State Historic Preservation Office and also our historic district. And so because we have a historic district in effect already, that kind of gives us the green light to move forward if we want to. To become a certified local government, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, like forms and things to see if we meet all the criteria and the requirements. There's only 30 communities in the entire state of Michigan, and only 5 in Oakland County that are certified. To become a certified local government, once you've gone through those steps, it shows that historic preservation is important to our community, and it's something that we want to possibly use some monies to make sure that we don't call them buildings, we call them resources. Our historical resources are protected. And it's through a grant program that's matching funds. It's a 60-40 split where they'll reimburse 60% and ours is 40%. So they give back money, it's $110,000 per year to the 30 communities who apply for grants, anywhere from $10,000 to $60,000. So something that we could do, say if we go through these steps, we become a certified local government, probably the first thing that we'd want to do is to have a survey done of our entire historic district and see what resources we have, and possibly if there's something if there's a resource that needs some preservation, that's something that would be identified then, and also has to do with the historic register too. So it seems like something that would be a good thing to become a certified local government, since there's only 30 in the whole state. It kind of puts us on the front to show that we care about our resources, and we do have a historic nature to our community. And if we can get a little piece of that pie, I think that would be a really good thing too. And so at that meeting, the Historic District Commission then did give a vote of confidence to move forward to go through the process to try to become a certified local government.
All right.
The what? Oh, yes. So the certified local government, the resources we're talking about are publicly owned resources. one of the things that would be a possible project would be to continue the rehabilitation and restoration of the train depot. So think about that, those sort of resources that we have that are publicly owned that we could
How about the
preserve.
waterworks building?
So it's just gonna be.
Waterworks.
I knew it was coming.
It's a discussion for another, we're not
Yeah,
certified yet.
so-
So it does.
Money's already spent, Katie.
Just kidding.
It does take a little bit of time
Yeah.
to go through the process because it's apply for something, then they come back, and then something else has to be done. And so this, to become a certified local government, that costs no money. That's just a process.
All right, thank you.
Outside of that, I guess I have nothing until maybe
Parkinson.
Council's
We haven't met since our last meeting. We have a meeting next week. We did have a pretty successful Music in the Park on the 8th. Surf's Up put on a good show for us from 6 to 8. Everybody had a good time. We had 40, 45 people in attendance and some passerbys. There was a lot of cars that slowed down and listened for, as they coast past, going down the street, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. But all in all, it's a good show. We have another one coming up on August 19th, I want to say. Yeah, August 19th. It'll be 6 to 8 again. It is going to be the North Oakland Dixieland Band. So anybody interested in Dixieland, come on out. You'll probably be able to hear it downtown.
All right, thank you. Mr. Olson? Mr. Christian?
The planning meets tomorrow. There hasn't been a meeting since the last council meeting. So on the agenda tomorrow is the discussion about the Imagine Midtown charrettes and diving into that.
Carl Richter Community Center has not had another meeting since our last report.
All right. Back to you, Mr. Shield. Council comment?
What about Deputy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Personnel and, personnel and finance have not met, but I just wanted to relay to you, Chris, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the music in the park.
Good, thank you. I appreciate you letting me know.
People enjoy it. It was nice to see a lot of people out there too.
Yeah, it was nice to see people. I think what I will try and do for next month's show is ask George if we can borrow some of the benches from the Dickens storage to put in the park for some random places to sit, so that people aren't sitting on the ground or standing up against trees.
All right, thank you. Mr. Shield, council comment?
I guess I have nothing for that.
Mr. Rankin?
Nothing further.
Mr. Olson?
I'd like to maybe apologize to Mr. Weinberger, but when we got outside talking, Mr. Weinberger, I didn't pay attention, and I was getting close to come to this meeting, and I didn't have questions in front of me to give you on all the stuff you asked me, and I thought you told me you were a 5. And at the time, it didn't set in my mind, and we went to the meeting with all the council people, and I did not condemn the president of the village. We were all there. You were there. I did not sign any kind of disagreements against you. I brought it up. I said, if this was so important on our, the village manager and the treasurer for their score, why do we have to take this up and give it to Mr. Perkins? I did not condemn anything. I just wanted Mr. Walker to answer me a question. Remember, Jerry? And I wasn't condemning nobody. Because you were with me. I didn't sign anything. And I just don't want to bash anything.
Mr. Christian?
I'm happy that we extended Jerry's contract a few more years. He's been a pretty steady person in the office that has helped us out in plenty of the holes that we've had through the municipality, including the absence of a DDA director for a few months and then various other positions. So I'm happy to have you on board for another 5 years, Jerry.
Thank you.
I am holding an event on the 17th of August in the media room here at Carl Richter as a discussion for the medical marijuana law that we are currently talking about. There is a lot of misinformation accusations that this is being done for money, and plenty of other things too. So this is one that I wanted to have a discussion with people, set the record straight, that kind of thing outside of a typical council meeting. So the 17th at 6:30, I would be delighted if you guys would join me in having that discussion. And one last figure I had, in 2008 with regards to the medical marijuana law that we all voted on, the village passed it at 71%. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Hubbard? Ms. Musgrave? I have nothing.
Just congratulations, Jerry, on your contract extension.
Happy birthday, Councilman Shield.
Yes, we all need to sing to Ryan.
No.
Please join me.
No.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Ryan Shield.
Happy birthday to Ryan. Happy birthday to you.
19 never looked so good on you.
What?
I said 19 has never looked so good on you.
Remind me to move my birthday notification from Facebook.
Okay, we'll open the floor back up for public comments.
Thank you all for the birthday wishes and such.
You're welcome. Please limit your comments to 4 minutes and state your name and address for the record. Start right up front.
Tony Engelberg, 115 Coxville, happy birthday, Ryan. Jerry, if you can answer, since you were talking about roads, the train tracks on Broad Street in front of the Moose that are very bad right now, is that a village situation or is that a railroad situation?
So that's a railroad situation. Director Clausen has spoken with them several times about it. When he returns from vacation next week, that's high on his list. I've already received council request to do that. So yeah, so that's a railroad issue. They have worked on it some, but certainly
it's bad.
It's in rough shape.
Yeah.
Condition.
And the other question I got along that, since I've been busting your ear about this for a couple of years now, any further thing on switching the direction of traffic between Battle Alley and Junction so that...
So I'm waiting on a final report from the Traffic Improvement Association. They conducted traffic counts on both streets. And so they're going to give me a final report along with a recommendation for that. And so that then will be forwarded to the council. I think there are a lot of benefits to doing that, and a lot of it, though, will be education if we do that, because people are used to traveling and how they travel.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Joe Palercio, 3413 Harrington. Just a couple of final comments on the same topic as before. You know, it's probably once a week on Facebook or on social media that we hear, why did the village put a dollar store in? Why did the village put in an auto parts store right next to the auto parts store? And we all know that that's not the village's role, right? You guys didn't choose to put those businesses in. Those businesses come in. As long as they fall within the zoning, you have to allow them. This is one of the rare cases where the state has said to us, you can choose if you want these businesses or not. So it may be a little not in my backyard, but we have that ability at this time. The state has afforded us that opportunity. So as I'm 22nd, when we listen to these groups that come in, you have to remember who you represent. And you represent me as a village resident, not these for-profit businesses that are coming in. You know, we could probably get someone who operates a trash dump to come in and give you compelling reasons on why it's a great asset to your community. But I would like to see us watch, let's see these businesses go into other communities. Let's see them prove to us that they can operate reputable businesses and not get shut down like the last one that we had, and like ones that have been shut down elsewhere in the state for various illegal activities. And so let them prove that they can run legitimate businesses. Then you can have the data. Let's not rely on data from Colorado or the state of Washington. I want to see data from the state of Michigan with our people, with our laws, and let's see what happens then, and then make your decision.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach.
Sandra Clevin, 1011 Hubble Drive. Just a couple of things. Just to let you know, on Saturday, this past Saturday, the Holly BFW and Auxiliary hosted about 100 members from 20 different posts of the Honor Guard teams that serve out at the National Cemetery. we did a pig roast for them, thanking them for their service to the country and for the service and what they do for our deceased veterans. And we're going to be making that an annual event. Everybody had a great time. And a lot of people, that was the first time they were in Holly, so they got to spend some time in Holly. And then another thing, we are doing, the BFW and Auxiliary are doing another flea market in August, the 10th, 11th, and 12th. So there's event pages out on social media. I've sent it to Katie, hopefully she got it. It was on Friday when I know she doesn't work, but it was on my mind. So hope to see everybody there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further public comment? Mr. Cullis.
Yes, George Cullis, 601 East Maple Street. As the Holly Township Supervisor, I want to congratulate the Village Manager, Jerry Walker, on his extension of contract. We look forward to working with you on some collaborative ideas that we have going forward. And as a resident, I'm a little confused as I hear Mr. Cruikshank talk about medical marijuana and the village voted for it. I thought these were discussions about medical marijuana, but these were discussions about dispensaries and facilities, not just approving medical marijuana for the village. Am I correct or am I confused?
This was regarding the 2008 when the Michigan residents overwhelmingly chose to have a medical marijuana law.
But that's already passed and legal,
correct? I was just reminding people that they voted, the village voted 71% in favor of medical marijuana, just so that
but that doesn't mean that we wanted the dispensaries, the facilities, the grow yards in our backyard.
That's true. That is true.
Okay, I just want to keep the two clear because it keeps making it sound like you're trying to promote medical marijuana, which that debate's already gone.
Right, this is about bringing it out of the shadows, so that's what the whole.
But this is about facilities.
Yeah, all 5 licenses.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Billy Carmen, 203 North Saginaw. On the subject of medical marijuana, my recommendation is do some research on medical marijuana. There's a difference between recreational, there's a difference between medical. I lived in a community for many years in Northern California, and yes, California, but I saw the benefits of medical marijuana. And yes, it does need regulation, it needs laws, it needs proper distribution. But I might remind you, we have 2 of the largest opiate dealers in the nation right here in Holly. Does anybody know where they are? CVS and Rite Aid. We have a plethora of alcohol here. I would ask the police department, let's see some reports of marijuana use, medical marijuana use, alcohol, opiates, but do your research. You can't just stand up and use 70s jargon that, oh, it's a gateway drug, or it's going to ruin the community, or it's going to harm the children. Yeah, children should not be associated with it unless it's for medical use. If it works, then fine. But before people get up and start with a paranoia about cannabis and marijuana and laws, do your research on medical. Give it a fair chance, because it does have a positive effect for people that need it.
Thank you.
Pat Beanie, 210 Franklin. Let's get over the fact. Nobody's arguing, and that's what some of us that are really kind of about it. I guess I'd say indifferent on the subject, but what I don't like is being beat over the head that you're affecting medical marijuana. No, this whole argument's about retail. About opening up retail because they foresee, which I think probably is true, the recreational being allowed coming in the next year and a half or so. And to keep belting over our heads, oh, you're evil about this, you know, the medical, you're taking it away, that's nonsense. Pure nonsense. We had a gentleman here, oh, I'm going to spend $2 million in Holly and we're going to put girl, my wife, you know, is expecting her about getting her medical marijuana. First of all, it's not going to affect anybody in medical marijuana one way or the other, whether you vote yes or no. It's not going to change that. Why were, you know, if it was so hurting, why was the argument made here in the village and not in the township? Didn't see any of these people come to the township and say, look, you're voting on it. Why are you voting this way? Not a word. Anybody here show up at the township? Nobody did. Well, I take that back, we do have two that are always there. And I think they could back me up on the fact that nobody came and questioned it. Nobody, nobody came and said, hey, look, we want it. Because they want retail. And the retail spot is in the village, not in the township. And when you have outside groups coming in, nobody's arguing the benefits of medical marijuana. That's nonsense. This is a backdoor attempt to set up retail outlets for when it becomes recreational, becomes legalized. All I'm saying is let's have an honest discussion from that point of view. And this nonsense that, oh, I'm tired of it. And I'm not one, I really don't have a strong opinion because I see it coming down the road. Whether we like it or not, there's going to be some kind of legalization somewhere in this state over it for recreational. To me, it's, it matters not. I've had a medical card, didn't use it when I had treatment for cancer. To be quite honest with you, I didn't have any difficulty in finding any place if I had wanted to use it. And, but the fact is, it's a illegitimate argument to sit there and say that this is all about medical marijuana. It's about having retail operations for recreational purposes. And, anything other than that is just disingenuous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment? Councilor Brenner?
I'll make it short. Environmental 409 North Street. Anyway, what I was going to say was that Mr. Gilner after asked me a bunch of questions, and that I'll put it on record for Mr. Councilman Alsop that accused you and part of this council that reference to the you give me this information. Number one, Mr. Perkins did not give me any numbers or any information whatsoever. And you people sit here, the 6 of you on this council, and do a witch hunt on Perkins. Well, I hope he does the job that he got voted in for. And you people keep coming after him, one at a time. And it's not the first time. And it probably won't be the last time. In fact, I got a letter here from one of those. I'd like to read it to the people here. VW meeting request from Jerry Walker, sent Tuesday, January 10th, 2017 at 8:54 a.m. To Jim Perkins, CC Debbie Musgraves, Chris Rankin, Bob Alsop, Ryan Shields, and the village attorney, Mike Gilman. Subject meeting request, President Perkins. I was notified yesterday by the Holly Township that you contacted their code enforcement officer, asked her to prepare a quote for the township to take over code enforcement duties in the village. This is troubling on many levels. First, I'm not aware that village council authorized that request in a single council member. Even presidents don't have that authority. That action not only undermines the council, but is also interfering with day-to-day operations of the village administration. This also impacts the individual employee you want to replace, which affects moral and productivity of every employee. Additionally, I have been informed from business owners as well as employees that you have done the following. 1. Entered businesses and gotten involved in tenant-landlord issues in which you have tried to involve village staff by directly questioning them. Went to the DPW to directly question employees. Approach individual business owners to ask how I treated them. Ask individual owners if they were FOJs, friends of Jerry, to find this unprofessional and hostile toward me. Gee. You told the clerical staff that you were going to shake things up and fire everybody. You have also asked the Pierce City manager if he has an FOJ, which is hostile and unprofessional. And Jerry again. To date, I believe you have done the following. Enter with day-to-day operations, which is a charter violation, violate a council code of ethics, created a hostile work environment for me and other employees. I request that you contact me to schedule a face-to-face meeting to try to resolve these issues within the next 10 business days. At this meeting, I will ask Attorney Gilman to attend, or if not available, another council person, Jerry Walker, village manager. Boy, I guess you gotta put up a lot, don't you, Mr. Perkins? I bet this ain't the only one that you've had, probably. Just assuming.
What's that?
You know, reference to any other letters or things that have been done to you. I'm just assuming that, though. Well, anyway, Mr. Perkins, I hope you stay where you're at and you do the job.
Fully intend to. Thank you. Do we have any other further public comments? No? We will adjourn this meeting. Our next regular meeting will be August 8th, 2017.
It's 8:30.
See, Officer Chief, you need one of these hats. We can buy a couch. Go buy storage lockers. Johnny calls it storage lockers. Johnny calls it. Officer Chief was sitting there. Tell me what the state goes. You're not letting anybody know.